Introducing the orbital strafe. To perform this groundbreaking technique, you must first aim your analog stick at the normal air strafe angle. Then, smoothly drag the stick around its circumference in the direction you want to strafe it. This will create a curved motion in the air without even moving your mouse. That probably doesn't sound that crazy, but curving in the air without moving your mouse is a foreign concept to anyone who plays Source games. This is an impossible strafe using a keyboard.
Wait, that doesn't look impossible. So hi, my name's Ixam, and I have some thoughts regarding pinguefy's newest video. I don't use a keyboard for FPS anymore. For some context, I've spent a lot of time playing TF2, specifically rocket jumping, and I've made quite a few videos explaining various aspects of the Source engine. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in all this stuff, but that being said, I definitely know a lot more about movement than your average TF2 player. So in this video, which is really great by the way, you should go watch it, pinguefy basically attempts using a joystick to replace the standard W, A, S, and D most players are probably familiar with. Or, as pinguefy puts it, it's like using a controller on your left hand and a mouse on your right. Now, I don't have any really big gripes with this video, but that being said, I think a couple sections are kind of misleading and definitely gloss over some important caveats. That's one reason why I'm making this video, to explain more in depth what's actually happening, as I believe players unfamiliar with the Source engine would have a very hard time following along. The other reason I made this video, of course, was to challenge this idea of the impossible strafe that's presented in the video, and prove that it is in fact possible. Well, kinda. So there's two sections of the video that I wanted to focus on. First was this part where pinguefy explains what analog movement is, and then claims the following.
In a game like TF2, people are so used to aiming at the three main directions of approach, and a lot of skilled players will make use of their mouse to adjust their trajectory. But to do this, you must take your aim off the opponent to achieve an angle between the main three. This trade-off does not have to happen with analog movement. You have so many more options for what angle of approach you can take, all while keeping your crosshair trained on the target.
Okay, so I'll explain what that means, because I think if you haven't played TF2, you might be a bit confused. They're saying that if there's like a player here, right? I could go straight forward, I could go forward plus right, like this, or I could go forward plus left. And their point is that you can't keep your aim on the player here if you're not moving in one of these three directions. But at the end of the day, it's not too hard to see that this is wrong. So for example, I could tap D while moving like this. I'll show it with a rocket jump. It'll give a bit of a better example. Like this. Right. Not great. The point is, you can move in ways very easily where you're still looking at the person, but not moving in one of these like cardinal directions, as pinguefy claims, right?
Must take your aim off the opponent to achieve an angle between the main three. Must take your aim off the opponent to achieve an angle between the main three. Must take your aim off the opponent to achieve an angle between the main three.
The other section I had an issue with was the whole orbital strafe thing, that clip I played at the start of my video if you remember.
Introducing the orbital strafe.
Now, I need to make a confession. The truth is that making a strafe completely identical to pinguefy is impossible if you're using a normal keyboard. That being said, I wouldn't call doing an orbital strafe on its own impossible. And I believe this video is kind of deceptive in presenting this strafe as some kind of brand new game-breaking mechanic.
Orbital strafe. To perform this groundbreaking technique, you must first aim your analog stick at the...
So, let's try understanding what a strafe is, and what this so-called orbital strafe is.
Okay, so I want to clear up a few things for people that might not be too familiar with movement tech. First, clarification, which isn't really made too clear in the pinguefy video, is that moving your mouse does not actually affect movement on its own. So, if I rocket jump like this, I move my mouse around, you can see that it doesn't really do much, right? Like, I'm not moving. I'm set at the same trajectory, whatever happens, right? So then how does strafing work? How can I go around like this? How can I strafe around this container? Well, the answer is, you want to be moving perpendicular to the movement direction at all times for the smoothest possible strafe. So to showcase this, here in MS Paint, if I, the player, was moving in this direction, and I wanted to strafe around to the right like this, the way I do it would be, I'd want to be holding a movement key that sends me in this direction at the start, around here in the middle, here at the end, and then obviously, you want the in-between values, just like this. So, we're traveling right at the start, we're traveling downwards at the end. And pinguefy's video basically explains that you don't need to move your mouse while doing this. If you have an analog controller, you can start with it right here, and then you can transition to the controller being right here, and then you've gone through the necessary range of motion to strafe around like so. Now in the regular game, obviously, we just do it like this, or we move the mouse with the key press. That has the same effect. And the reason why no one has really tried to change this is because it's good to see where you're going, right? If I'm like on this red container, I want to strafe around to this blue container. I want to look at the blue container where I'm landing, right? But then pinguefy's video is basically making the point that, well, if you want to, you can now strafe around without moving your mouse because you're doing the necessary key presses. So I'll show in the video.
Aim your analog stick at the normal air strafe angle. Then, smoothly drag the stick around its circumference in the direction you want to strafe it. This will create a curved motion in the air without even moving your mouse.
Okay, so pinguefy calls this an orbital strafe and says that it's impossible to do with keyboard. But here's the issue. It is very possible to do with keyboard. So if we go back to paint here, you'll see, well, I could be pressing D at the start, and I could be pressing S at the end. In theory, you could just, tap S a few times and then be holding S at the end. You can get all these same movements. It's not going to be as smooth, but you could do it. And so here's the orbital strafe, as pinguefy calls it. What they do, if you were going to strafe normally, you go like this, right? Strafe around like that. And they're claiming it's impossible to do with a keyboard, where you don't move your mouse, but you can. Right? So it's not perfect, but this is clearly not impossible. Now, would I be able to do the strafe as smooth as pinguefy? Probably not. I'm not going to be able to tap my keys perfectly. But the point is that this whole idea, you can't with a keyboard strafe while not moving your mouse, I don't think it's really true. I can strafe. As you can see, it's not great, but it is possible.
So, with all that said, do I think analog movement has no place in TF2 and other FPS games? Well, no. Like I said, while I've been able to somewhat replicate what pinguefy showed in their video, using a joystick would obviously result in a cleaner orbital strafe, to a degree that is technically, yes, impossible on keyboard. At the same time though, this video glosses over a lot of important caveats, and in some parts is just straight up wrong, unfortunately. I don't think it's intentional, but at the end of the day, look, pinguefy's video was never aiming to perfectly explain every aspect of the Source engine. Its aim was to tell an interesting story, and in that, it succeeds. Anyway, thanks for watching everyone. Watch this other video I made if you want to learn more about the Source engine, and yeah, subscribe or something, I don't know. Peace. See ya.